We're live. It's 7:16, so I'm a little bit late, but we are here. And today we're going to talk about, on the thumbnail, we have a B16A Honda. This is a engine combination I put together to do racing in back when I was doing time attack with this Civic right after I did on this one right here. It was actually for this one right here. So after we did stuff at Bonneville, we kind of turned it into a time attack car, and the rule stated that we had to run a B16. And so we did, except it wasn't a B16. It was bigger than that, but we had to run a B16 block. So you could do a stroker application with a short deck, and I had done that before, run that before, tested that before. But this was a much better combination because we were going to run it turbocharged. We were going to run it in a road race application, and so we wanted some strength. So what we did was did a B16A block. We did a DARTON sleeve. We had the deck insert. So we had a solid deck. It was now a closed deck, basically. And we had more deck height on the block because we had the spacer on it, basically turning it in. The difference in the deck height thickness was the difference between a B16A block and a B18C, B18A, B18B, B18C5, between the B16 and the B18 deck height. So we basically made a B18. So we could make a B18 out of it. We could make whatever bore size we wanted. We could put an 84 millimeter in there if we wanted to. We didn't. I think we kept it 81 or 81 and a half because I think that that's what the rules required. But we ran a ported head and cams and stuff on it and a turbo. And so, you know, it had the potential to make lots and lots of power. But it was cool because we were trying to circumvent one of the rules in the class and allow us to run, that required us to run that particular block. And so when people would walk up to it, they would just, all that they were looking at was the stamping on the block. Quite honestly, we should have just changed the stamping on the block, remachined it, and made it look right. Would have been easier. This was a much more expensive route, but it did work out very well and allowed us to run it. And the car was fun and fast. We had to take a lot of weight out of it because as a Bonneville car, you honestly don't care about it. In fact, that car had basically all the interior and stuff in it other than what wouldn't fit with the cage. But it had all that stuff in there. And then when we started road racing, and just like we did with the Del Sol with this one right here, this one was, I'm thinking it was probably below 2,000 pounds, somewhere in there. And so we wanted to get rid of a bunch of weight on that was a 99 Civic Si, an actual original B16A powered Civic Si, which was, I like those cars. I think they look like little BMWs, and that was nice. And it was much better, obviously, once it was turbocharged. And for a long time, we had a Vortex supercharger on it and ran it for a long time with that, and that worked good. But a turbo was just much better for average power production, and we ended up making more power, obviously, with the turbo. But both of them were good. But I like the fact that we had this combination that we put together when we were road racing it. The Darton stuff worked very well. We never had any problems with it, never had any sealing problems or cooling problems or water or anything. All of that worked well. Prior to that, when we ran Bonneville, when we did the Bonneville part of it, we actually used a sleeved B18 block and then also a Dart B18 block. And again, we never had any problems with either one of them. We tried various combinations because the rules for the class we ran it in G, which is sub 2 liter. So we could make any kind of 2 liter combination we wanted. We normally would run an 84 millimeter bore, and then we would run either the 87.2 crank and the 89 millimeter crank. We ran both of them, and both of them worked. The bigger, the longer stroke made a little bit more power because that's what they do. And we weren't running a ton of RPM in this thing. I think the highest I ever ran it was 8,700, and we would only run it that high in fourth gear at Bonneville. And that was only because we had to extend the RPM because there was such a big jump between fourth and fifth gear. We were running, we had a custom final drive made for the Bonneville deal, which was a 4.0 final drive. So it wasn't the 440 or the 426. It was a 4.0. So we had, basically taller gears in it. We had tall tires on it, 26-inch tall tires, which were not ideal because it raised the car up. But that way we got away with the gearing that we needed. We could have had a different final drive, but we were kind of limited by I think the guys at Liberty Gear made the final drive for us. But the split between fourth and fifth gear was very dramatic. So we had to run more engine speed in fourth gear and carry it out. And that was the first gear that we could actually go to wide open throttle. And all the other ones were part throttle because the tire would spin. It was an open diff. And so we would accelerate all the way out to 86 or 8,700 in fourth gear and then make a shift into fifth. And then it would just have to pull fifth gear up to beyond 8,000 RPM. We didn't run, like I said, we didn't run a lot of RPM. This thing went 227 miles an hour and had RPM to go more than that, because we know that the thing would go to, it probably would go fairly safely to 9,000 if we had enough boost in it to get it to run up there. But we didn't when we were running it at Bonneville. We only ran about 16 or 17 pounds. But everything ran great. The thing had ice water in it. It had a big turbo. It had a 72 millimeter turbo. It had less back pressure than it did boost pressure, so it had a good relationship. It had pressurized air feeding the turbo. As I said, ice water going through a dual core intercooler. It made good power NA. It made over 200 horsepower at the tire NA, so it was making good power to start out with. We were probably making where we were somewhere shy of 500 horsepower at the tire the way that we were running it. The ice water helped a lot. We were not running E85, which would have been good back then, but this was quite a while ago. I wasn't doing E85 testing back then. We did run it on like C16 or 118 Rocket brand or something. But all that worked out very well. The car actually just went out and made, lap after lap after lap. And subsequently, I had sold the car, and now I've sold the car. And the gentleman that owns the car now has gone out and made 3 records with it, got all him and both of his kids into the 200 mile an hour club. So shout out to John, the new Civic owner, and they're doing more things with it. So it's very, very cool. In fact, I may borrow it for something that I'm trying to put together. So we'll see what happens. It'd be cool to get back in that car. And that car is like the Del Sol to me. Like this one, it just feels right. When I road raced that in Motorola Cup, and it just, some cars just feel good, and that one felt right. And this one at Bonneville just wanted to do like all the right things. It did have an axle shaft come out, but that's not the fault of that's not really the fault of the car. That's probably assembly or the age of the axles and stuff, because the axles that we used in this were the axles that from this car that I also used for, I don't know how long, we won the US Touring Car Championship with it. And before that, it was in Motorola Cup. So those axles, the only thing we ever did was take them apart, and I used really good grease in them. And then we put new boots on them. And then we would put zip ties. We would put the steel reinforced zip ties on the accordion sections of the boot, so that at speed, otherwise they would balloon up and it would either blow the seal out, or they would balloon up so much that it would just suck the seal away, and then you'd get axle grease everywhere. And then if you lose all your axle grease, obviously that's not good for those, and you'll definitely break them. But that seemed to cure it and stop that from happening. We actually had that happen on the chassis dyno when we were making some high speed runs on the chassis dyno. So it's an easy way to find out. We're like, oh yeah, that's just spitting stuff everywhere. And then you figure out, oh, look, it's off of the boot. And that's what's happening, is that as you go faster and faster and faster, centrifugal force just like, and then when you grow this way, it also has to grow this way and pulls them off and unseats them. And then you sling stuff everywhere. So you find stuff like that out when you're testing. If I had to do it again, the things that I would change on this particular car, so you can kind of see you can see the tires are pretty tall. I would like to get this car lower to the ground. So I'd like to change the transmission and or final drive gearing, which is much more common now than when we were doing it. So I'd like to make this shorter, get rid of some frontal area, get this lower to the ground, get rid of some of the form drag. If you get the car lower to the ground, it's just better off. And we don't have to, you don't have to worry about handling and stuff so much. But, if it was a problem, we could change the mounting points of the suspension, all that. But none of that's really necessary. Bottom line, it's just, as long as the toe is right and the camber's right, it just kind of goes straight and does everything that it's supposed to do. This one was good because it had a full belly pan. It had a rear diffuser. It had a good wing on it. It had a front belly pan. All of everything inside the opening here was inside. This is the radiator opening. You can see all of this is closed. Everything is closed. We had everything inside here was fenced. So it was a sealed area. That's where we would take air for the entry going into the turbo. And so it, obviously good things happen. But after we did that, we took this other one apart and read the rules and said, oh, well, now we have to make a B16. But we have so many B18 combinations that we know work. So let's turn our B16 into a B18. And that's exactly what we did, with help from the guys from DARTON, to make that the deck plate and the sleeve and all that worked out really, really well. So I'm going to have a poll tonight. So be nice. Should I do a 24-hour live feed? 24-hour live feed marathon. And what I'll do is I'll break it up. Actually, it won't be 24 hours straight, but what I'll do is I'll do it like an hour at a time, and then take a short break, and then log back on, and then do 20. We'll do that for 24 hours consecutive. That's what I'm thinking of. Should I do a 24-hour live feed marathon to celebrate the new year? So thank you guys all for watching. So to celebrate that new year, we'll get loopy and stay up for 24 hours and make it all happen. So we'll see what the people think. Live, it's all the way live. Let's see. Everyone's in the house. Can't stay the whole time, Java. That's okay. Thanks for checking in. Would you run oil squirters on B series 800, 1,000 horsepower drag motors? Yeah, I would. I would almost always run oil squirters. I don't think they take anything away from what you're doing. We always ran them, but I always ran them at Bonneville, where we're at wide open throttle for a really long time, like a minute 30, I think is how long we were in the throttle for. But as I said, not all of that was full throttle, because we can't get into full throttle for until the top of fourth gear. So it's not all at wide open throttle, but running for, we're at wide open throttle for several miles. So probably 2.5 or 3 miles at wide open throttle. So it's a lot more than your typical drag race thing. But in road racing, we definitely use the oil squirters. The only time I didn't is I built a custom. I used the 89 millimeter crank, had Potter do me some custom rods, and used so they're shorter rods, but I had, and then used a factory piston so that it would, if we had to take the head off, it looked like a factory piston for a class that required the factory piston. And we built that. And in order to do that, the piston, I could have notched the piston a little bit, but I think we ended up just getting rid of the oil squirters. I take that back. We did not. I got rid of the oil squirters to begin with, and I thought, that's probably a bad idea. I think I ended up, and I did this, notched the pistons, notched all 4 of them, and just notched them and never worried about rebalancing. That's right. It's been a while since I did that. But I remember the dilemma trying to choose between those two things. But in road racing, I thought that the piston squirters were a really good idea. Did you know that someone has a record quarter mile pass in an 89 Civic powered by a B18B non-VTEC turbo engine running 845 at 174? No, I didn't know that. Under 2,000 pounds at a Honda isn't hard. It's not, but with a road race cage and stuff, it was a little bit more difficult. And with the Del Sol, it was a little bit more than it is with a hatch. We didn't take the, I didn't resort to taking the sound deadening material off the Del Sol. We had a minimum weight, which I think was like, I remember it being 2020 or 2030 or something was the minimum weight. And so we had to just get down to that. Jason, you missed the earlier session. Have questions about blowers? Ask away, man. Will you be doing more testing on a K24? Yes. Hey, are you the Fonz? Richard sent you 2 links of a 4.6 3-valve Mustang running an M90. Check it out. They both made 450 wheel horsepower. That's a lot. I know. How is that like not 100%? I need to start vetting people, obviously. When did you first start getting into engines, and what was the first car you started building on? My first car that I owned was a 1970 and a half split bumper Rally Sport Camaro. That's really the first one I started working on. Before that, I had a few motorcycles. I had not a few. I had one motorcycle. I didn't have other ones till after I got the car, but I had a CL 100 that you learn to do stuff on. You want me to change my name to Jerry? I did some port work and adjusted the cam timing. Maybe I can make it at 350 wheel horsepower. Thanks for all the content. Well, thanks for watching, man. I know who said no. Alan, come on. We're not only a few people, but a lot of people said no. I've been pondering for quite a while on a junkyard supercharger setup for a V8 Mercedes, and I came across a 4.2 and a 5-liter Range Rover Sport. 06 to 09 is a 4.2 in the later ones. I have seen one of those blowers in the wrecking yard over by West Tech. I didn't take the blower off of it, but I have seen one of those, the Range Rover ones. Is it difficult to add piston oil squirters to an engine? Maybe. I don't know where it depends on where you could get. The difficulty would be getting the oil supply hole to the squirters. It depends on how the oiling system is done. Bring in a bunch of 1-hour guest interviews. I can't do that. Honda Talk. Honda Talk's always good. M12 in the early and then maybe modified version on later. Anybody mess around with these? I have an L series. I think they got lost in the alphabet. No, the L series on the Fit, those are fine. It's not which one is better. It's whatever you have. How do you make whatever you have better? That's the thing. It's not that you can't make as much power as a K series or a J series or C series or whatever you want. Just what you have is what you have. And then how now do I make that better? How now do I make that better? You port the head, you put cams in it, you put a header on it, put an air intake on it, put a turbo on it, put the Rotrex supercharger. John, you're about to go racing, and in which type of category? You're going to Bonneville, or you're doing road racing? You need to start the 24-hour thing by saying 2 more minutes. Points for that. Richard, have you talked about the 4-cylinder LS headed thing? I have a little bit. There's obviously not a lot to know about it because it's not a real thing yet, but so you have connections for a dyno at a couple of power adders. The numbers that they're giving you are not real numbers that they've made. Like, they've never made 340 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds. You think about it, you can't do that unless you do it with boost. It would be the only way to have that much more torque than horsepower. If it's a 4-cylinder and it has an LS head on it, and it has an LS like duration kind of camshaft in it, think about what an LS does. So if this is half of that, we'll say that it's half of it. Would be actually half of a 3.67.2. So it's going to be a little bit more than half of an LS7. So if we put an LS7 head on it, or at least an LS3 head, the horsepower and torque number are going to be, if it's an NA motor, are going to be fairly similar. The head has enough airflow to support that power level. But to make that much power out of the 4-cylinder, things would have to be pretty good. It'd have to have enough compression. It'd have to have a really good intake manifold. It'd have to have an intake manifold that's at least as good as the LS3 is, or like a fast version of the LS7 or an MSD version of the LS7 head. All of that's possible, but you're not going to get 500 foot-pounds without boost. So you get on the LS3, it makes about the same horsepower as torque, makes a little bit more horsepower than torque. So the number that you're going to have is definitely on the torque would definitely be in the 300s if you made 340 horsepower. But if you had boost, then you could have them all be 500 or 600, whatever the number is, however high you turn it up. But I don't have access to those. I don't even know if they have those available yet. But I do know the guys at Blueprint because I've done a lot of stuff with them. Richard, did you use Hoonda on your B series? We did. We did the S100 early on, and then did a 200 and eventually a 300. Do you think notching the rod is as good as adding oil squirters? What happens when you notch the rod? Are you notching the rod to get oil, to direct oil at the bottom of the piston somehow? When swapping heads on an LS motor, do you shoot for specific quench clearance? I don't. I'm not interested in quench clearance so much as I am interested in. I'm more considering cylinder head to piston clearance, so that we know that they don't come in contact with each other. So if on LS motors, the piston is oftentimes out of the deck, sometimes as much as 10 thousandths. If you've milled the deck, obviously it could be more with a factory piston. So you want to have enough. Deck thick or head gasket thickness so that the piston doesn't actually come in contact with the head. And I speak from experience here because I've had that happen before, where the piston actually came up and was slamming into the head. It ran that way for a long time until it was taken apart and it was discovered. You'd think that would be, because it was just happening like right at the very top. And then when you'd get stretch, obviously it would happen a little more. What turned us on to it is that it was leaking water. And so it was only doing it just enough. But that is a concern. And that concern is less about getting quench for optimum performance or whatever than it is about the piston not hitting the head. When swapping heads on an LS motor, oh yeah, we did that one. I voted no on the poll because I don't want you to fall and land on your wife's fist. That's probably not a good idea. 24-hour LS turbo filibuster. Mexico City's in the house, trying to prove my friend wrong that you can add 100 horsepower just from heads and cam on a 5.3 if you have the right setup. Those videos are already up. That's really easy. We could add 330. Yeah, you can add 100 horsepower to a 5.3 with just a cam. You don't even have to have cylinder heads to do that. Just got in from the cold, wet outdoors, replacing a starter for my neighbor. No good deed goes unpunished. Exactly. Todd, it's good to see you up and around, though, man. I think I solved my no spark issue. I needed to roll the engine 600 RPM during start. Is that the problem? There is a starting RPM in the Holly. I busted up the freeze plug sealing area on one of my stock heads in my Turbo 5.3. If my buddy JB can't weld it up, I think I'll have to buy a set of ported heads. You could just go to the wrecking yard and get another head. That's pretty cheap, especially if it's a stock 5.3 head. I'm about to do your twin 4.8 liter twin GT 3582 build. That'll be good. I think that those turbos will support over 1,000 horsepower. So I don't know how responsive they're going to be on the 4.8. 799 stage 2.5 TSP porting. Those heads could make a lot of power. Todd, yours have 243s right on them. Their 243s are 799s, right? Because I thought that yours was an LS2. Oh yeah, 799. Yeah, you can, Alan. You can make a lot. I haven't tested. I don't think I've tested the TSP. I don't think I've tested their ported stock ones. I know I've run some of their heads back in the day, but given the fact that those heads have been around for a really long time, everybody should have pretty well perfected their like porting programs for those. And it's not uncommon to see over 300 CFM, so enough to support a lot of NA power. Usually the head will support a lot more power than the vast majority of people make from their combinations. How much could you spray on Elm 7 without gapping the rings? Why don't you want to gap the rings? If you're trying to do most stuff, you should do the prep. If you're trying to do lots of nitrous, you should prep for lots of nitrous. It should have a camshaft in it, as much cam as you can stick in it, because if you're running lots of nitrous, you should try to make as much NA power as you can. So it should have a good sized camshaft in it, because if you're running lots of nitrous, I'm assuming you're racing it. So it should have that, and it also should have a ring gap. What? Stop watching the stream? See, that's not right, man. You should at least say, while you're watching Richard's stream, you should also watch this. I mean, there's no reason that you can't come here and, try to be nice. On 4.8, I'm only looking at 7 to 15. 7 to 15 pounds is a really big range. That's a 50% gain versus 100% gain. And you're going to do 30,000 ring gap. That'll work. But 15 pounds is going to be a lot of power on a cammed 4.8. And honestly, if you're only looking at doing that much, I think I would, unless you already have the turbos, you could put something smaller on there too, so you'll get better response. Boosted vision, I only want 100 shot. You can run 100 shot without any problem. We've run 300 shots on junkyard motors that didn't have the ring gaps done, although we eventually broke it. So if that gives you any idea. So what is our poll? Wow, our poll is way, way down, much lower than I thought it would be. It's making me think I shouldn't do that, right? 67% are saying yes, and 33% are saying no. Maybe we won't invite that 33%. Yeah, 30,000 ring gap. I got that. Somebody needs to talk to Turbo Centra. I got the AN fittings, but still have a few other parts I'm waiting on. TIG welding rods and a new blue belt. Is there any reason I can't run a 200 shot and boost? Do you need both of those? If you have the ring gap for it, and you have the tune for it, and you have the octane for it, and you have the intercooler and charge temperature for it, then that will work. We've run nitrous and boost before, and it works. But the more things that you stack together like that, the more critical your tune becomes, and the narrower your window. 33% probably have to work. But the nice thing about the great thing about doing a marathon like that is you come whenever you want. Nobody says that you have to be here for 24 hours. I would be the only guy that has to be here for 24 hours. Everybody else can come and go as they please. The thing that would be cool about it is if I could talk to people from different countries and stuff in different time zones. So we could reach people in Hong Kong and New Zealand and the Middle East and wherever, Greenland. Best turbo for 700 wheel horsepower, 306 small block Ford street car for good response. A GT45 is right near there, but you probably could pick something better than that. People are afraid you're going to spread yourself too thin. I get up pretty early to do trading anyways, and I work until 11 or 12. So I'm doing that stuff anyway. What's the best way to gain knowledge on EFI tuning? There's lots of stuff online that will tell you about it. You could go to EFI University. Holly has stuff on it for their HP management systems and stuff. So there's lots of places to learn about it. I said no to 24 hours because I don't want to see you suffer 24 hours in your chair. I don't have to. I can do other things. I can set up my laptop. I can walk around. I can do lots of stuff. Yeah, so you're just going to rub in the fact that they got Cleveland's a lot longer. They did do that, which is cool. And they have Barras, which is also cool. Can you use 3-inch piping on an LS53 hot side and cold side with a GT45 turbo, or is it too big a piping? No, it's not too big. I know the cold side would be fine. Not sure about the hot side. Why do you need to run a 3-inch hot side on a turbo 5.3 with a GT45? I wouldn't if you have the choice between running it and not running it. There's no reason to run a 3-inch from the. What are you using for manifolds? You use the stock manifolds, and I say that, but with those tubular headers that everybody buys, that were the ones that I was getting back in the day, were terrible for plug fitment and for burning plug wires. But those had 3-inch outlets, 3-inch V bands, and so we made when I say we, I mean Jason at JT Fab. So shout out to Jason. Welded up 3-inch, 3-inch going to our 3-inch V band, but it was a 3-inch going into a 3-inch, so there was no need to have 3-inch piping. It's just that was the exit of what the headers were. So we've done that, and then the one that we use with the stock exhaust manifolds is 2.5. So we just go 2.5 to 2.5 to our 3-inch V band, and then we have an adapter to go to the 3-inch V band to different kinds of turbos. So there's no reason to do that. If you've already done it, it will work. They both will work. Uh, 700 wheel horsepower is going to be like 800 flywheel. So maybe I'll bet Viren has one that might be between a 7875 and a GT45. So something in the 72 or 3 or 4 millimeter probably. Every hour you focus on engine family, you have a book on at least the first 40 minutes focus on the family, and then off topic is allowed. I could do engine families, which would be good. I've been trying to figure out a way to break this up to different things. I have thousands, literally thousands of dyno tests that I could talk about. So there's no shortage of things to talk about. I could read a book. I could read a bedtime story. We could do all kinds of fun stuff. So I don't think that would be a problem. Turbo Sentra, what is your NA power up there already? Do you have a ported head? Do you have cams? Do you have a good intake manifold? Like, is the NA motor making good power? You should be able to get with is this an SR20 if I remember right? Something like that. If it is, you should be able to make 450 wheel horsepower with that. That shouldn't be hard. We've seen it done on the chassis dyno at Westech. Because I know Uri and Christine made that kind of power with her. She has an SR20 in a 510. Casey, so you're up late, man. I'm sorry to hear about the hell stuff, but you're up till 3, so you'll be there. Daniel, you'll be back. I just watched Arnold say that very line. Exactly, Adam. Atmospheric pressure being 14.7. If you double the atmospheric pressure, like you run 14.7 pounds of boost, we'll call it 15 just to fudge that a little bit. But if you ran 15 pounds of boost, you'll just double the power output. You have the potential to double the power output. That's why we talk about the NA power output being so, and I need to go to, what's going on, man? You guys are not hooking me up with live chat here? Let's see. There we go. Yeah, so we double the power output at near 15 pounds. And that's why we talk about the NA power output being so important. Because if you have a 200 horsepower and you run 15 pounds, then you have a 400 horsepower. But if you could push your NA power up to 250, now you have 500 at the same boost level. So that's the benefit of doing that. And when you're trying to get lots of power, that's one way to do it. You can also turn the boost up and not run 15 pounds, just run 20 pounds. You can make your intercooler better, put a bigger turbo on it. You can do lots of stuff. Bring on other engine guys and race cars. Unfortunately, this is all done in my room at my house, so I'm probably not going to do that. But I do want to do interviews, and that's my goal for 2023 is I'm going to be doing interviews, but probably not at my house, not like a podcast, although that's also a possibility. Can a 429 7-liter Ford handle boost like an LS? Probably not like an LS, but it can handle a lot, leaning towards a 76, 75. That's enough turbo to easily do that and then have room to go, closer toward the 1,000 horsepower deal. You can get an S300 and a 72 millimeter and a 73 millimeter turbine. That turbine size might be, I don't know what size motor he was talking about. That turbine size might be a little on the small side, but. Richard, I was wondering how my Buick 464, which that's cool, would do with a Pro Charger with a cam I have, 11/7-1 compression, it's a solid lifter camshaft. The 108 lobe separation and 590 lift, unfortunately, don't tell me enough about the camshaft. What I need is the duration on the camshaft, but I don't even need the duration on the camshaft because it will work. It will work fine with the Pro Charger. The combination that you have will work good. 11/7 is pretty high. I hope it has an aluminum head on it, and I'm hoping that you're using lots of octane. NA, it's making 160. It's an MR20DE from a 2007 Sentra. What do you have done to it? You need to step up in turbo. Yeah, a GT30 or a 3076 or a 3580. A 3582 would be 500 or more if he wants to do that. But I think a 3076 would definitely get him there. An S372 BorgWarner probably would do. Oh, the 800 horsepower deal that you're talking about. Aaron, were you asking about that? Was that a 4.8 that you were wanting to put that on? Do a moto vlog on the Trail 90. I'm always having Trail 90 videos pop up that have lots of views. Yeah, they do. I've seen lots of really cool Trail 90 stuff. I was under the impression we were going to talk about Honda B series. Were you here at the beginning? Well, while we talked about nothing but B series stuff, then we go to question and answer. Yeah, the interviews will be done over video. I just need to figure out how to do that. If you do a 24-hour marathon, am I going to sing? No singing and dancing probably, but Milo will be here. Go visit people from here and interview them. Do you have a favorite car that you currently own? Of the cars that I own right now, which is I have a 5-liter Mustang that I'm the original owner of, bought in November of 87. And it's an 88 California car, first year of the mass air meter. I bought that to go road racing, which I did a lot of. Did a lot of top speed stuff. Ran it out the Silver State for 12 years. Did lots and lots of cool stuff with that. I really like that car. I also have an Omni GLH, which is out with the guys at the car farm. So shout out to Ben and Brian out there at the car farm. That could quickly become my favorite car. I have a 1970 240Z that doesn't have a motor in it, but I have a motor in the garage that is a turbo 280ZX that Oliver's let me use to do dyno testing with. So that could easily be my favorite. My Silverado is the one that gets me around every day that I drive. I have the Trail 90. I think that those are the only cars I have. Are Ellis Chambers open design? The open and closed chamber stuff was a reference to big block Chevys, I believe. And I think that they were just talking about big and small. Nobody references LS chambers like that. Alan, you should come to Sacramento and do a show with us. I don't know if I have a way to do that. The problem is that the Wi-Fi signal has to be really, really good. It doesn't work if I use a hotspot on my phone. The laptop won't work doing that. I could just do it on my phone, I guess, but it just doesn't work as well. We had to do that out with the car farm guys. What would one pick up by porting a small limited blower like an M90? I've seen people if people are talking about getting 500 wheel horsepower out of an M90, I've never seen that. I've never actually seen that happen. But they're talking about it. And in looking at the blower that we ran, that Gen 5 blower on the 3800, it just seems like it would be getting harder and harder to do. Maybe if it is easier when you have a lot more motor that you're dealing with, like a 463 valve already makes way more power than makes way more power than even a supercharged version of the 3800 makes in stock trim anyway. So if you're starting out with a lot more power, the blower is producing less pressure and will produce more flow at less pressure. So that benefits things when the NA power output is up. But even still, it just seems like a lot. But porting will help. But the gain that you get from porting is going to be a function of the speed of the blower and what you're applying it to. Aaron, you have a 5-liter that you're doing, so not a 4.8 or a 5.3. Is this a 5-liter Mustang? So Turbo Sensor, you have stock stuff, stock block and stock crank and stock rods and stock pistons. I hope you have ring gap, right? Richard, do you have any experience with Wankel stuff? I've only run them on the chassis dyno. I've never run them on the engine dyno, and I've only done limited mods. Like we did a header and exhaust on one. I did some fan testing on one on the chassis dyno. We did like a direct drive, like those flex fans on one. It was terrible. It sounded like an airplane taking off, and it killed power a lot. So we did do some testing on them, but I'm by no means a Wankel expert. I'm more of a wanker. I always thought bedbound turbos would have a lot of lag. Now that I have seen a couple, I think I'm wrong. Seems like it would be easier, lots more room. It is lots more room. And a lot of things people talk about stuff that they think will work or think doesn't work. Oh, and a lot of stuff is from things that we've read from over the past. Oh, you got to have the turbo as close to the exhaust valve as you can, or cylinder heads don't matter, or camshafts don't matter, intake does. There's a lot of stuff out there that is just misinformation. And then somebody says, hey, let's just try it and see what happens. And then you do. And that's how the Big Bang came about. Is like, oh, it breaks at 9 pounds or 10 pounds or whatever. I'm like, it doesn't, the piston doesn't know how much boost it has. It has no idea. It doesn't know whose name's on the valve cover, and it has no idea how much boost you're trying to push. So something else is going on. So that's why I did that initially. I'm like, and then after we put ring gap in it, thanks to Jerry from the machine shop over there, once you do that and you cure the problem that kills all of these or most of these things, tune probably kills more of them. Then if they can get past the tune part, then they get to the ring gap no man's land. And then once you get past that, you can actually make a lot of power. And then and then you find what the limitation is. But the limitation is and the bed mounted turbos is the same thing. Oh, that's way too far away. I felt exactly the same way. I remember when Jimmy from HP showed me when he first showed me where they were mounting the turbos on the modular Ford stuff. It was up on the side of the radiator, basically in the front bumper. I'm like, that's going to be way too laggy. No, it's not. It's not too laggy. It works just fine, which is what I showed when I did the 14 feet of tubing. I mean, it's not ideal, and it was laggier than and would dissipate heat, obviously way more than not having it like that in that extreme example. But it made boost and made power and did all the things that you're supposed to do. I did not buy a Rampage yet. I'm not going to get a Rampage. I'm not going to get another project until I have projects that are done. Put the aluminum 5.3 in a Fox body. Yeah, I could put that in there. I don't have anything in the Mustang right now. Alan, you have a good Wi-Fi at your house? Do Ellis chambers have a large quench area? I think I have a picture of, well, I don't think I can show you the picture of it. I have cams made, but it'll be around $1,000 because the cam over buckets. Yeah, Alan, I'm sure that it's better than Westech. Although I'm going to figure out whether or not I can plug directly into their router or their Wi-Fi and not try to not have it be not take their signal. So I could plug directly into the computer like I'm doing here. It will be much better. And I'm hoping that I can do that. I might just have to run a really long cable out to where I do it. LS Turbo 280 would be fun. Yeah, except that mine's not a 280. It's a 240. I have a 280 motor, though. Is a manual T5 transmission too weak to use on a 600 horsepower LS? It depends on how abusive you're being. It will take that power. It's just not going to take shock-loaded stuff. I didn't ever run it at 600 horsepower. I ran it at about 450 at the tire with my supercharged Mustang, and I road raced it like that, a T5. So I wasn't abusive. I know how to shift because I was a road racer. But ran it out at the Silver States. I ran it at lots of different races and stuff. I even ran it at the drag strip a few times. Not a lot, but a few times. (1972) Datsun 521 pickup, inline 4-cylinder, 96 horsepower, 101 foot-pounds. So, Daryl, what is it? Why are you giving us those specs? I like those trucks, though, but have some of the guys here do a walk around of their cars and send the file to you and show it between the live shows. I don't know how I would do that. Turbo center, look into rods, some good bearings, a larger frame turbo. Make sure your fuel system can supply the fuel and stock pump. Then go up in turbo size. Oh, let's see. Let's see. I would like people to supply their cars and information. I've had people send me information and we've used their photos and stuff, which is very, very cool. I just don't know how I can't do it the way that I'm doing the stream right now. I have 2 fuel pumps and plenty of injector. I'm trying to get 450 on the stock bottom end. Well, you need to run, if you're making 160, then you need to run 29 pounds. At 29 pounds on E85, you should be able to make that power. 5.3 liter LS with twin 4 diesel 6 liter turbos. Yeah, that can be done. Does anyone try to buy one of those flood cars for a project car? How much ring gap for a 6.0 for boost? We run 28 to 30 thousandths ring gap. So we'll go ahead and close our poll out. I'm really surprised on that people don't want to see that. That really disappoints me. You guys disappoint me. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. An L16, yeah, that's the 4-cylinder predecessor. That's the same motor that was in. They have an L20 also, right? Didn't they use those in the 510s? Is that what would have come in a 510? I do like the little 510s. What's your take on a 4-cylinder turbo Mustang and Silverado? Obviously, I like them. Anything with a turbo, I'm in on. I wish that instead of an LS that I had a 4-cylinder turbo in my truck, and I wish it was 2-wheel drive, and I wish it was smaller. I wish it was a Rampage, basically. Then it would definitely get better mileage. Because I don't ever use it to anymore. When we had a boat, I would use it to haul the boat, and then it's good to obviously have V8 torque. But even then, I never really used it, except to get up some hills and stuff. To celebrate the new year, we want to start with a big bang. We do need a big bang, right? If I was closer to California, I'd send you my modular build to run on the down. I appreciate it, but I probably would not do that. I've had trouble with that in the past. Don't I think really want to do. I'd rather take chances with my own stuff. 68 to 72. So the early 510s had L16s, later ones had L20s, but were ugly. I'm going to take a look at that. Let's see. Let's see. DARTON 510. Let's see. 67 to 73, Tokyo Motor Show. Let's see what we got going on. I'll see which ones I like. Oh, that is Datsun Bluebird. 1970, Datsun State Wagon. Bluebird 1400 Deluxe. Deluxe 247. Motorsports. Obviously, the one that I like the most is the Trans Am series, the BRE stuff. Those were awesome. Should have invited James Kempf. I don't know who that is. What kind of powder do you think I'll make with a Pro Charger for the Buick? And do you think a girdle would be necessary? Engine dyno at almost 600 foot-pounds. It depends on what supercharger you put on there. The supercharger ultimately is going to dictate how much power you can make. So if you put 1,000 horsepower supercharger on there, like a D1 SC is a pretty good example of 1,000 horsepower supercharger. If you put an F1A 94 or an F1X or an F2 or an F3, F5, whatever, however big they go up to, then you have gigantic potential. So that's going to determine how much power you make. But it's pretty easy to go from 600. It's pretty easy to go to 4-digit power levels with a, like if you put an F1A94, that's pretty easy to go there. You want a Bluebird Triple S. That's right. You want the Triple S head or whatever, right? I just think you should celebrate New Year's with your family. Oh, I plan on it. I'm not doing this over New Year's. I would do it after that. Did an SR20 and an S13 coupe, 18 PSI was pretty nice. That would be good. For the new year, we need a flat plane crank LS. Yes, beat that dead horse. Yes, we are driven. That's right. Yeah, 510 wagons are cool. Wagons on most of the stuff. I was trying to get my family on board on that. They weren't buying any of it. I'm like, oh no, dude, a Dodge Magnum wagon or whatever they're called. Those are awesome. Dad, that's a wagon. I know. Knock sensors or no knock sensors. Are you running a factory ECU? If you're doing an aftermarket motor, the problem with having knock sensors in the factory ECU is that they will often get false knock triggers from other things, from other kinds of noises. Piston slap from forged pistons, rockers, headers, just everything seems to kind of set them off. So be cognizant of that. We don't run them on the engine dyno. We just tune it and not go into knock. James is the world record holder for 6-second all-wheel drive B-Series speed factory guide. But anyway, B-Series boost is aluminum rod, sleeved O-ring, diamond piston. So that sounds like it's a fairly serious build. I've been oohing and awing over the who has the billet K-Series block. They have a thing on Instagram that I've been watching, which is pretty amazing. Four piston, that's who it is. Yeah, those really are impressive looking. The guy that holds the record spent $10,000 to make 426 wheel horsepower. I want to make 450 for less than 3,000. Thanks for the advice. It's helped me figure this out. The thing that you need to do is put good gas in it, have big enough injectors, have big enough pump, put a turbo on it that will make 500 horsepower. And so that's if you want to make 450 at the tire, you're going to need a GT3582. So put that turbo on, you should run, if you want to do it, and you want to do it, if you're just trying to put a wheel horsepower number together, you should put an air to water intercooler on it, and you should run ice water in it, and you should run E85 on it. And if you do that, you will be able to turn it up high enough to make the power that you want. If the tune's right, it will do it. What third-party dyno facility has the most advanced monitoring system available? What is it you're trying to get done? I have 1,000 horsepower K24. That's good. Those can make a lot of power. They make good power NA, so they make a lot more power than a B series does. I don't know a lot about other third-party dyno facilities that have full monitoring systems. I don't know what all you're wanting to monitor. Most of them, like Westech has, pressures and temperatures and EGT. They can log 802 sensors. I mean, I don't think I've seen them do more than 8. So it depends on what you're trying to get done. My SRT. Oh, they're back. My SRT on M1 with the G35 1050 will be definitely pushing the limits, trying for some records. And if you aren't running E85 Turbo Sentra, you're running methanol, it would help too. Yeah, Morales, an LS VTEC, get it? Little Honda shot there. If the LS had VTEC, that would be very cool. That's like it's well, people then talk about, oh, but yeah, VVT does the same thing. No, it really doesn't. VVT advances and retards the cam. That's not the same as having a whole nother cam to jump onto. Yeah, and M1 I think will help them make a lot more power, right? I haven't ever run M1 and I haven't compared it directly to E85. So I don't know how much. I would think on a turbo application you would make more on methanol, but I haven't, since I don't have direct data to figure out what that comparison is. I'm not really sure how much it would be. Turbo Sentra 2000cc injectors will be enough. Yeah, and trying to do it with stock cams, I don't think is a good idea. I'm sure that the other guy has cams, and he probably has gotten rid of the VVT. I would think the VVT for you for a big power number is not necessary. The VVT, you should just put other cams in it if you can, because the problem is you don't have enough engine speed probably with the factory VVT cams and a long runner intake manifold. So what you want to do is you want to run more RPM. You want a short runner manifold. You want more cam timing, more lift, and more duration. Short runner intake manifold, methanol or E85, a big turbo, and then I don't know if you have a ported head, that probably will help. And then the right fuel, and then an air-to-water intercooler with ice water would probably add another 20 or 30 over if you have an air-to-air right now. And on that note, actually, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up on what is tonight? I don't even know what tonight is, but it's our 7 o'clock night. It's actually later than that now because we've gone over an hour. But thank you guys for all for being here. Tomorrow is New Year's Eve. We tried to go to Costco today because we wanted to get my sons. Unfortunately, I have a buddy of mine that I raced with, Gary Sheehan, who is now a multi-time U.S. touring car championship winner. He's a very good driver. He's much faster than I am. But he introduced, and I rue the day that I met him up in Canada when we were racing Formula 2000. But he introduced my sons to, he had us over one time when we were for New Year's and introduced my sons to lobster. So now they think that every New Year's is we get lobster. And we tried to get it today, went to Costco, but they were out, unfortunately. So they're all depressed, but they'll live. But tomorrow's New Year's Eve. So we'll have fun. I'll be doing some live feeds tomorrow. As always, I'll try to get another video up, the last one of the year, a regular video. I think I've run out of stuff that I tested on West Tech on my last trip. So that means I need to go back down there and do some more stuff, which I've already ordered. So it should all be good. Thank you guys all for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow.